Hi, I'm Dolly Vasta, and welcome back once again to Dolly's World. Do I have a show for you? A few months ago, I got a notice that said an old friend of mine, artist Ed Adams from Lambertville, New Jersey, was holding a canine casting call. And all the dogs and their owners were to report to his new studio, the E.M. Adams Gallery in New Hope. Well, I thought, I can't pass this up. After all, you all know how I feel about dogs. So let's go meet Ed.
Bow, wow, bow, wow. Bow, wow, wow, wow. Bow, wow, bow, wow. Bow, wow, wow, wow. Woof, woof. Bow, wow, wow, wow.
So Ed, what was behind your decision to have a canine casting call? That's a little unusual, isn't it?
It is, Dolly. Well, when I go into the studio to paint, very often, for years, whatever dog was in my life at the time would sit in the studio with me. I have a chocolate lab now named Roscoe, and Roscoe sits in the studio and will lay down sometimes too close to me where I trip over him, but if I'm unsure as to what to paint, I'll just look at Roscoe and I'll do a dog painting based on a gesture or look that he's giving me. And if I like the painting, it comes into the gallery. And by and large, people really enjoy those pieces, and they tend not to last too long here in the gallery. So over the years, people have been encouraging me to do more and more of the paintings. So I finally relented and said, fine, but I need dogs to inspire me, so let's do a casting call for dogs. And that's how the idea was born.
Did you know what you were getting yourself into?
I didn't have a clue. I naively thought that we would get a response from about 10, maybe 15 people. And so the press release went out. And what happened was there was all of this buzz that went out there. People would read the article and started telling other people that there was this casting call at the E.M. Adams Gallery and at what time it was and so on. And it was about a week before I began to recognize, the staff began to recognize that we're getting a lot of interest. Well, the morning of the show, or the casting call, we had approximately 65 people waiting in line to come in to the gallery with their dogs.
It just goes to show, though, how much people think about their dogs.
Oh, it's a passionate love affair.
It is. Did this surprise you at all? Did you learn anything from this tumultuous response?
Well, I did. I learned how important animals are in our lives, I mean, I knew it because I experienced it. But when I began to see how intimate the dogs were with their owners and the owners were with their dogs, and I began to hear the stories about the meaning the particular dog had in someone's life. It was obvious to me that I wasn't painting dogs. I was to paint relationships. I was to paint aspects of the dog that draw us, that move us to connect.
Your dogs don't always look like the dogs that walk in here.
Well,
you have a stylized way of working.
Exactly. Right. That's what I forewarned people, that not to think that it was going to be a painting like the horse Seabiscuit or something like that, where there was an exact duplication. In fact, I've done some pieces that are very realistic from my style that I then moved away from and stylized even more, because I didn't really want to go to a photographic image.
Well, it's just, as you say, photographic image. That's exactly what it would be, though. It's just another photographic image in oil.
That's right. And I think there's value to that, but it's not what I want to do.
Well, getting back to our pictures, because I will drift, and starting with the pug maybe, can you think of anything about that appealed to you? What appealed to you about the pug?
Well, when the pug came in, I haven't actually been up close and personal to too many pugs. So when the pug came in, I was just moved by the facial feature, by the pugness of it. And I mean, it's a perfect name for this dog in terms of the breed, because the face is pugged.
Smushed in.
But he was extremely affectionate, and the owners were both just proud as punch to be bringing him in. And so what attracted me was to try to capture that pugness, and that's what that painting is about.
And it does. It does. It's wonderful.
Thank you. The title of the show is Pure Whimsy, the celebration of dogs. So there's a whimsical aspect, hopefully, to each of these pieces. I didn't want to get too serious about the dog, so that the whimsy seemed to be a way of expressing affection. There is a little lab piece that I did that was one of the earlier pieces, and he's just sitting there. He's just cute as a button. And when I looked at him, he was just cute. There's just something maybe not very profound about responding to cuteness, but there's something very human about it. And I found myself responding to his cuteness. So that's a cute painting, because that's what it was.
Well, you also had, which I said to you before, had very jaded eyes, the Westie.
Oh, yes. Well, the Westie was the oldest dog that came to the show. The Westie is 18 years old, and that's what impressed me. He was lively, he was vibrant. You know, as an 18-year-old dog, as good as an 18-year-old dog could be. But the fact that he was so old gave me the sense of trying to capture an animal who had experience, who had seen the best and the worst of humanity, who has been a true loyal friend for so many years to his owner, but who is a little tired, a sense of life being at a different phase. So in that piece, I really wanted the face to capture a whole lot of that kind of emotion. And I try to do it in as few as brush strokes as possible. So I try to say a whole lot in a little.
You have one in the back of the gallery, which I fell in love, Doggy Dream?
Yes. Yes. Well, that's a Roscoe piece. That is a...
I love the ears.
Yeah. Well, they're floppy, and the whimsy is there again. I think he kind of trying to capture a certain look. If I call him, for example, I sort of get this look at times where he's saying, I hear you, but I'm not sure I want to come. You know, I'm not sure this is where, you know, I want to do what you're asking me to do. So there's this kind of moment of decision that is that he's feeling, and then I'm feeling something at that moment. It's like, I really want you to do this. You know, I want you in the house. And so there's this moment where we're communicating with each other about wills, my will versus his will. And every once in a while, I prevail.
Occasionally. All right, what about some of the others?
Well, I have one piece called The Request that is, again, a floppy-eared dog. That it's the look I get from almost each of the dogs that when they came in for the casting call, we had dog biscuits as a reward for them and a thank you for participating. And for most of the dogs, some of them didn't care, but the vast percentage would give me this look like, I want that biscuit, you know, like that's all that matters in life right now, is putting that inside my mouth and chewing it and so on. And so this particular piece was trying to capture that moment of total focus that the dog has when he or she wants something to eat.
When you explained to people that it wasn't going to be a true photographic image of the dogs that were chosen, and a stylized version of what you saw, an essence of this dog, what came across to you, were there any objections?
None whatsoever. At least no one expressed it to me. I think what it might have even further excited the person to think that some essential element of their dog would be captured. And most people were familiar with my work in general, so they if they have never seen my pieces before, when they walked into the gallery that day, they would see the pieces that were hanging on the wall and know that they're stylized in Ed Adams kind of way, and using my palette and colors, and that's what they would anticipate with an interpretation of their dog. And so I think it really actually kind of added to the curiosity of what would happen, and did something essential in my dog excite the artist to paint it, and if so, what is it? And so the attraction is very strong.
So you weren't necessarily looking for the most beautiful dog in the group?
No.
I mean, this was not the Westminster Dog Show.
Right. Well, see, I took photographs of each dog, and some of the dogs had wounds, for example, like bandages on their feet.
Aww.
So I was interested in that. It's like, because that's an aspect of life. We all get wounded. Dogs get wounded. And so is there something about the wound that can be captured in the painting that speaks of our relationship with the dog, but also speaks to our own humanity?
You also, I noticed, have a family of dogs.
Yes. Those are I chose that particular painting for the announcement card for the show. They are it's called The Family, and they are truly a family of dogs. And they were brought in by two people who came together, and all four dogs were in the back walking around, and they love each other. They are very familiar with each other. And so I took pictures of them as a group, and when I was doing the painting, I decided that I would do it as if it were a group portrait, a family portrait. So I used the individual photos and decided compositionally how to put them into the painting, and then did the portraits of the four dogs.
They say that dogs, in time, resemble their owners. Did you find any of that in some of the dogs that you saw? Or anything that they could have picked up from their owner?
Well, I didn't, frankly, I didn't see resemblances, although I've heard that as well, and from time to time think that is indeed true. By and large, though, what I was seeing was the intensity of the affection and connectedness between the owner and the dog. How often the dog would take cues from the owner, just looking up, making sure that it was, first of all, some of the dogs were scared. I think some of them thought they were at the veterinarians, you know. So they were a bit anxious. And some of the people were primping the dog, making sure that it looked its best. And so there was all this concern and interest in having the dog put his or her best paw forward, you know, and so that I would be interested in the animal. It didn't really require that. I didn't need that. The gesture of the dog or the personality of the dog was coming through loud and clear. Frankly, there wasn't a dog that I didn't like.
I never met a dog.
Never met a dog. Actually, I have met a couple.
How did this change you, or didn't it in any way, in your thought about relationships between pets in general and their owners?
Well, one of the things I recognized about 10 days ago, I was working in the studio very late at night doing one of the dog pieces. And when I'm painting, as many painters will say, you get lost in the process. Time gets distorted, and you go into a kind of a trance state where you're just quietly moving about, thinking and moving away from the piece and so on. When I was doing that, I was recognizing how, and this goes back to your other question, in painting the face of the dog, how much the face of the dog is the same as a human face. When I paint a human face, the schnoz is elongated and so on. I mean, there's dogness that comes through, but the eyes, the position of the eyes, the nose and the mouth, the fluffiness of hair sometimes, or the fur, the expressions in the eyes. Essentially, I felt the connection of the aliveness, or of the, it's the connection of one living creature to another, that we are far less separate than we are connected.
Bonding?
Yes.
A bond?
Yeah, that we're more the same than we are different.
That's interesting. Would you ever do this again?
I think it's one of those things where when I finish the show, for about a month, I'll say, boy, I'm never doing that again.
I'll never do another dog.
Right, never do another dog. And then it's in all likelihood, I may, because frankly, I'm having fun.
You know, you said before, reminded me of something. I'm sure you've been in a vet with your dog,
Oh,
or
sure.
your past dog. And it's somewhat like being in a pediatric office with your child. Did you ever notice the one-upmanship that goes on about their animals? Well, I'm not so big in this, but my husband is, and he will say, oh, my Duff does this and this and this, and then pretty soon you find can you top this, the one-upmanship? Oh, yes. And then someone else joins in, and what has been a very quiet little group now is this huge group of braggarts.
Well, what I heard quite a bit was that if you met my dog, I know you have met many dogs, but if you met my dog, you would see how special he or she is. And then people say, I guess you hear that a lot too. And but what I realize is that the dog is special. It's special to the person who loves the dog. I mean, people will respond nicely to Roscoe. He's a very friendly, loving dog, but no one is as intimate with Roscoe as my wife and I are. And so, of course, he's going to have a special place. He's going to be special.
Well, you are a psychologist. Do you find that gives you an insight into this whole procedure of owners and dogs? Or did you learn something new out of it?
Well, I know something about relationship, because in my clinical work, basically, I'm dealing with aspects of relationship almost every day. And so having familiarity with relationship may have come through in this particular show, and in the way I'm trying to create the body of work around the dogs is really about relationship.
Well, when you talked also about your stylized look that you use. Actually, it's used in everything that you do.
Yes. First of all, when I do an oil painting, in most of my paintings, I don't use brush. I use my hands.
I remember that.
Right. So there's no brush stroke in any of the pieces. I do use brush in some of the smaller watercolors because if I pushed into the paper, I would lose the transparency that watercolor is supposed to have at its best. So the work in general has a very strong color base to it. The subject matter is, I'm trying to say an awful lot in a little, so that the fewer details that I have, I feel the more the piece takes on a power. And my subject matter ranges from landscapes to portraits to still lifes to more unconscious kinds of random thoughts and images that may be part of unconscious mind.
Well, you said before, too, that as you've gotten older and you do more and more work, you've moved away from the realistic side of it. In the very beginning, did you work in realism?
Well, I think most artists, when they're starting out, at least in our culture, have the mistaken idea that art is about draftsmanship, and that the more you make something look like something, the better artist you are. And what that proves is that one is a good draftsman. But art is about the expression of something new. It's about the seeing something with a different eye. And it's really about the truth of oneself. So I think it takes a while to ripen to a point where you know yourself well enough that you could paint something honestly the way that you feel it, experience it, or see it.
Well, I know that the older I get, years ago, and going back years ago, I was not into a stylized version, maybe having a very traditional upbringing. You want to look at something and know that this is a tree or a bird or whatever it is you're painting. But the older I get, the more I have veered away, and my family laughs at me because I have embraced a whole lot of different ideas about art. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting, and it's true, you do know yourself better.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I think that when we're young artists, we rely upon different ideas that are informed by what we think other people approve of. And it takes courage to paint your own way, just like it takes courage to be yourself in life.
And you have been given a commission to do a new sculpture, and I have here a miniature of it.
Yes.
And how about explaining it for us?
Well, this is a commission, was commissioned by George Michael, the developer of Union Square, New Hope, and it is called the Angel of Hope. This will be a 5-foot bronze piece that will be mounted on 2-foot pedestal, which will bring the piece up to 7 feet. And on the base here will be a 2-tier fountain where the water will be moving down. And the idea here is that the Angel of Hope is emerging and is a symbol of hope at a time in our lives where sometimes things don't feel so hopeful. And so I'm really thrilled that this piece is going to be brought into reality. I believe that people will be responding to it here at Union Square in a way that they'll want to really talk about it, see it for what it is, take pictures in front of it, and so on. So it's a very important piece.
It's also very good, even commercially speaking, for the gallery, the E.M. Adams Gallery, which you opened recently and is a new, beautiful gallery here.
Thank you. Thank you. I was able to design the interior of the gallery myself and create a space that I hope when people walk in creates good feelings, not only by the paintings, but by the design of the interior. And the sculpture being here at Union Square certainly will be related to, they'll say who did the sculpture, and it was Ed Adams, and of course the gallery is not that far away, so yes, it's great. It's a great honor and a privilege.
And we must say that, remind people that this is also in New Hope.
Yes. The actual address is 440 Union Square Drive in New Hope. It's a new development area that has a major restaurant, the Triumph Restaurant, and the Michener Museum is also located here, the Annex. So people can use Union Square as a destination point for a wonderful day out.
Well, Ed, it looks like our time is just about running out. As always, I don't know where the time goes to. But before we leave, when does the exhibit of all these wonderful dogs take place?
Well, the show actually opens on January 16th, which is a Friday, but the opening reception is the 17th of January from 6 to 9 p.m., and everyone is invited, the general public's invited. It's the time when the pieces will have all the people here that participated, and the show extends through February 8th.
So it gives everyone a chance to come over the bridge.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, thank you for your time. It has been so much fun.
It has been.
Take care.
Thank you. And it was really delightful.
Before we close, I just wanted to tell you all that this is the beginning of my 23rd year doing the show. And as always, I thank my director, Dave Ambrosi, and Peter and Cindy and the whole gang at TV3. I'll see you all next month. And in the meantime, take care.